The sky was still dark when Ethan stepped out of his small wooden house. The air was cold, and the ground was wet with morning dew. He carried a toolbox in one hand and a mug of steaming coffee in the other. It was supposed to be a normal day, on his farm at the edge of the neutral zone. But today, nothing was normal. Smoke. He saw it rising slowly from the barn. At first he thought it was fog, but the smell hit him, burning plastic and metal. He dropped his mug, ran toward the barn, and kicked open the door. Inside, his tools were on fire. Wires were melted. His hover plow had been smashed. Sparks flew from the walls, and sitting on a pile of hay, looking bored, was the alien girl. Seray. She didn't even look up as he entered. Her pale silver skin glowed in the firelight. Her eyes were bright violet, her long black hair tied in a messy knot. In her hand, she held one of his old scanners, broken in half. Ethan stared in disbelief. Cray. What did you do? She shrugged. I was bored. His heart tightened. Not with anger, but with disappointment. This was not the first time. She had flooded the kitchen last week. She'd crashed the farm's drone just 2 days ago. And every time he said the same thing. It's okay. Just be careful next time. But now something inside him snapped. He walked slowly into the barn, grabbed a fire blanket, and put out the flames one by one. No words, no yelling, just silence. When the fire was out, he turned to her. This is the last time, he said. Quietly, no more chances. Soraya blinked, confused. You're mad over some junk? He looked at her with tired eyes. Those tools feed us, keep this place alive. You don't care, but I do. She stood up, brushing hay from her dress. You act like I owe you something. You're the one who picked me up from that auction. I never asked for your help. That hit him like a slap. He remembered the day he found her, locked in a metal cage, barely able to speak. She was weak, covered in bruises. She had begged for water. Ethan had paid the trader with everything he had to take her home. He had built her a room, fed her, taught her how to live free. And now, this was what he got? He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His face said everything. For the first time since she arrived, Soraya felt cold, not outside, but inside her chest. The look in his eyes wasn't anger, it was distance. It was the look of a man who had stopped trying. Fine, she said, forcing a smile. I'll stay out of your way then. Ethan nodded once. Then he walked past her and left the barn. He didn't slam the door. He didn't yell. And that scared her more than anything else. Back in the house, Ethan sat in silence. He didn't even touch his second cup of coffee. His hands were still shaking. He wasn't a man who lost patience easily. But something had broken today. He had done everything for her. Not to earn something in return, but because he believed she deserved kindness. But maybe. She didn't care. He stared at the wall, eyes empty. The sounds of the farm buzzing drones, windmills turning felt far away. Meanwhile, Soraya sat alone in the barn. She kicked at the ashes of the burnt tools. She thought about how she used to smile when Ethan brought her sweet bread or fixed her old music player. She thought about how he sat with her when she had nightmares, never asking questions, just offering tea and quiet company. And now he hadn't even looked back. She touched her chest. Her heartbeat was fast. Her fingers trembled. Why did she feel guilty? That night, dinner was quiet. Ethan placed a plate on the table for her, but didn't say anything. He didn't even wait for her to join. He just went to his room and closed the door. Soraya stared at the plate. She sat down, picked up the fork, then dropped it. The food didn't taste right. Her chest was too tight. Her throat felt heavy. She whispered, "Why didn't he yell at me?" There was no answer. Just silence. And in that silence, the first tear fell. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the hills, but the warmth didn't reach Soraya's heart. She sat on the wooden steps outside the house, staring at her hands. Last night felt strange. No shouting. No punishment. No questions. Just silence. The kind that made her feel like she didn't exist. For the first time since she had arrived, Ethan hadn't asked her to help in the morning chores. He was already out in the fields, fixing the destroyed equipment by himself. Normally he would call her, joke with her, or explain how something worked. But today, he didn't even glance in her direction. Saraya didn't understand this kind of silence. Back on her planet, anger meant loud voices, pain, chains. That's what she knew. That's what she expected. But this quiet coldness was worse. She walked to the barn, thinking maybe she could fix something, anything. But the moment she stepped in, the smell of burnt metal and ash hit her again. She stared at the mess she had made. The guilt from last night returned like a shadow. She sat on a broken crate, hugging her knees. Why do I feel so weird? She whispered. Ethan worked without pause. His shirt was soaked with sweat, and his arms were covered in cuts from sharp wires. Every time he looked at the burned hoverplow, he felt a sharp pain, not because of the loss, but because of the trust that had been broken. He had believed she would change. He had hoped she would understand. But now, he wasn't sure if she cared at all. He wiped his forehead and kept working. No time for feelings. Feelings had already cost him enough. By afternoon, Saraya finally gathered the courage to speak to him. She walked to the field slowly, her hands behind her back. Ethan was fixing a drone, his face focused. She stood beside him but didn't say anything. Just stood. After a minute, she whispered, "Do you want water?" He didn't answer. "Maybe I can help you. Like pass tools or something." Still nothing. He finally spoke, but his voice was flat. "Go rest." That hurt more than shouting. She walked back slowly, heart sinking. The way he said those two words felt final, like a wall had been built between them. That evening, she sat at the table before he could. She cleaned the plates, placed food carefully, even added some fruit he liked. She thought maybe he'd notice. Maybe he'd smile. But Ethan sat down quietly, ate quickly, and didn't speak. When he stood up to leave, she said quickly, "I'm sorry." He paused. Just for a second. Then he said without turning, "Sorry doesn't fix trust. Actions do." Then he walked away. Later that night, Saraya lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. The walls around her felt colder than ever. She remembered the first few nights in this house. How warm the bed felt. How Ethan would knock on her door and ask if she was okay. How he would sit by the fireplace and tell her stories about Earth, about a planet that had once burned, then healed. Now, the house felt like it wasn't hers. She sat up. Her heart was pounding. "I have to do something," she said to herself. She stood, grabbed a flashlight, and tiptoed to the barn. The damage was worse than she remembered. Tools were melted, parts beyond repair. But she saw one drone that had fallen but wasn't completely destroyed. She sat beside it and started working. She didn't know much about Earth tech, but she had watched Ethan. She had asked questions before, mostly to waste time. But she had listened. She remembered what each tool was called. She remembered how to connect the wires. Hours passed. Her fingers bled. Her eyes burned from staying awake. But she kept working. By the time the sun began to rise again, her back was sore, her clothes were dirty, but the drone's light blinked once, then twice. Then it hovered for a second, weak but alive. Saraya smiled for the first time. In days, she dragged herself back to the house. Ethan was stepping out again, toolbox in hand. He froze when he saw her, dirt all over her arms, eyes red from lack of sleep. She looked up at him and whispered, "It's not perfect, but I fixed one." Ethan didn't respond. Not right away, but his eyes softened, just a little. The drone sat on the table between them, still humming faintly. One blade was bent, The wiring wasn't neat, but it flew. It actually flew. Ethan didn't say anything at first. He just stared at the machine she had repaired. It wasn't perfect far from it, but it was something she had done with her own hands. That mattered. Still, the crack in his trust was deep. One fixed drone couldn't patch up weeks of damage. Soraya stood silently near the door, watching his face. Her heart pounded. She had never been afraid of anyone's silence until now. It was louder than thunder, colder than ice. "I didn't mean to break things," she finally whispered. "I just didn't think you'd care so much." He looked at her, really looked. "That's the problem, Soraya. You didn't think at all." Her chest tightened. Ethan wiped his hands and walked past her, heading toward the field. She followed. "Wait," she said, grabbing his arm. "I want to say something, really say it this time." He stopped but didn't turn around. "I'm sorry," she began. "Not the fake kind. Not because I feel guilty, but because I realize what I did. You gave me a place when I had nothing. You trusted me when no one else did. And I took that kindness and played with it like it meant nothing." He didn't move. "I remembered how you found me," she continued, voice shaky. "That cold cell, that filthy auction block. I thought freedom meant doing whatever I wanted. But now I understand. Freedom doesn't mean carelessness. It means responsibility." Ethan finally turned. His eyes weren't angry. They were tired, deeply tired. "And what made you realize that?" he asked. She lowered her head. "Last night. Fixing that drone. I saw how much work you do every single day. And I saw how much I destroyed." Ethan sighed. "One apology doesn't fix everything." "I know," she said. "So let me show you. Give me a chance to earn it back." He looked at her for a long moment. "Talk is easy, Soraya, but change is hard." "I'm ready to try," she replied, "even if it takes forever." The next few days were quiet, but different. Soraya no longer waited to be told what to do. She got up early, helped in the fields, washed the tools, repaired what she could. Ethan didn't stop her. But he didn't praise her either, and strangely, that made her work harder. She remembered when she first arrived. She would pretend to clean just so he would smile and say thank you. Now she didn't care about the thanks. She cared about making things right. One afternoon, while fixing the solar grid, she slipped and scraped her arm badly. Blood ran down her elbow. But instead of crying or calling for help, she wrapped it herself and kept working. Ethan saw it from afar. He didn't say anything. But that night, a small jar of healing gel appeared quietly on her table. She smiled. One night, a strong windstorm rolled over the valley. Ethan rushed to tie down the equipment. Soraya followed without being asked. Together, they worked in the rain, holding down sheets, moving machines to shelter. By the time the storm passed, they were soaked, shivering, and muddy. Ethan glanced at her. Not bad. It was the first kind thing he had said in days. Soraya's face lit up. That same night, they sat by the fire. For the first time in weeks, Ethan made 2 cups of tea. He handed her one. "I noticed what you've been doing," he said. She blinked. "You did?" He nodded. "It's not easy to change. But you're trying. That matters." A silence settled between them, this time not cold, but peaceful. "I thought you'd never speak to me again," Soraya said softly. "I was close," Ethan admitted. "But then I saw you in that storm. You didn't run. You didn't complain. You just helped." She smiled. "I've been a brat," he chuckled. "You said it, not me." They both laughed, a small, genuine laugh that broke the tension at last. And for the first time in a long while, Soraya felt like she truly belonged. The wind was howling louder than anything Soraya had ever heard. Not even the noise of slave ships taking off on her old planet compared to this. The sky was a strange color, deep purple mixed with red, glowing as if the stars themselves were angry. Ethan stood at the edge of the field, looking toward the mountains. "It's not just a regular storm," he muttered. "That's a plasma." "Front." Soraya stood beside him, clutching her jacket tighter. "Is it dangerous?" Ethan gave her a serious look. "If it touches the farm directly, it could burn everything." "We have only minutes." He ran toward the barn. "I need to shut down the generator manually. If it stays on during a plasma hit, it'll explode." "I'll help," Soraya said quickly. "No." Ethan snapped. "Stay inside. It's too risky." But Soraya didn't move. She watched him grab a toolkit and sprint into the darkness. She turned and looked back at the house, warm and safe. Then she looked at the barn glowing in the distance, wires sparking and the wind trying to rip the roof off. She whispered, "No. Not this time." She ran. The wind nearly knocked her off her feet. Dust on her eyes. Sharp leaves sliced her arms. But Soraya kept running. She reached the barn just in time to see Ethan trying to lift a fallen metal beam. It had collapsed onto the access panel to the generator. His hand was bleeding, his face covered in sweat and dirt. She rushed to his side. "I told you to stay inside." He shouted. "I don't follow orders anymore," she said, gripping the beam. "Then follow common sense." Too late. Together, they pulled with all their strength. The beam barely moved. Another gust of wind slammed the barn door shut, and inside, sparks flew from the power box. "If we don't cut it now, it's going to blow," Ethan said. Without a word, Soraya slipped underneath the twisted frame. It was tight, but she was smaller than him. Her hand reached the wires, but the shock made her scream. Still, she didn't stop. Her fingers finally grabbed the right cable. With a grunt, she yanked it free. The humming stopped. The lights flickered and died. Silence. Ethan quickly pulled her out. "You could have died." "But I didn't," she said, smiling weakly. And then she collapsed. Ethan carried her back through the storm. She was shaking, her hands blistered, her hair full of ash. His heart pounded not just from fear, but from something else, pride, relief, maybe even guilt. He had asked her to change, but he never expected this. When they reached the house, he laid her gently on the couch. Her eyes fluttered open. "You're mad," she whispered. "No," he said. "Not anymore." She smiled faintly. "That was the worst storm I've ever seen. You saved this place," he said. "You saved me." Soraya blinked. "I did?" Ethan nodded. "I thought you were just sorry for the past. But tonight proved who you really are." She looked away, embarrassed. "I just didn't want to lose the only home I've ever had." That sentence hit him hard. He sat down beside her. "You nearly gave your life for this place." She laughed softly. "I wasn't just saving a farm, Ethan. I was saving the man who gave me my name back." The next morning, the storm had passed. The sky was clear, the sun bright. The land was still there, damaged but alive. Ethan stood beside Soraya as they looked over the field. Trees had fallen, equipment was torn, but the heart of the farm, the generator, was untouched. Soraya took a deep breath. "I feel like I've changed." "You have," Ethan said. "Even if I mess up again?" "We all do," he said. "But now I know you'll try to fix it." She turned to him. "You still trust me?" He smiled. "More than ever," she grinned. "Even with burnt fingers?" He chuckled. "Especially with burnt fingers." They laughed together, and it echoed across the valley, strong, real, and full of something they had both lost long ago. Hope. The morning after the storm, Soraya woke up with her fingers wrapped in bandages and the scent of warm soup drifting through the air. Her body ached, her arms stung, but there was a strange comfort in the pain. It meant she had done something that mattered. Ethan was already outside, but this time he had left a note by her bedside. "Get some rest, you've earned it." It was the first note he had ever written to her. She smiled at the simple handwriting. Running her fingers over the words as if they were something precious. By midday, Soraya was up and walking. The damage from the storm was everywhere. Broken fences, shattered glass panels, a few collapsed tool sheds. It would take weeks to repair, but something was different now. When she stepped outside, Ethan didn't just glance at her and walk away. He waved. It was small, but it felt like sunlight after days of rain. They worked together all afternoon. She held the boards while he nailed them. She climbed the ladders while he held them steady. And for the first time, there was no tension between them. No silence, no distance. Just quiet teamwork. At one point, while repairing the roof, Soraya lost her balance and nearly slipped. Ethan caught her wrist just in time. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, neither of them said anything. But that 1 second spoke louder than 1,000 words. She trusted him. And now, he trusted her too. That night, they sat by the fire again. But this time it wasn't out of habit, it was out of choice. Soraya, wrapped in a blanket, looked over at him. Do you ever wonder if the past can really be left behind? Ethan stirred the flames with a metal rod. Sometimes the past isn't something you leave behind. Sometimes it follows you, but you decide whether it controls you or not. She nodded slowly. I used to think I was just a problem, a thing, that I didn't deserve a second chance. You were never a problem, Ethan said quietly. You were just lost. And now? She asked. Now, he said with a half smile. You're home. Her throat tightened. She turned her head so he wouldn't see her tears, but he saw them anyway and said nothing, because sometimes silence is kinder than words. In the days that followed, they worked not just to fix the farm, but to rebuild what had been broken between them. Soraya began designing new tech upgrades for the equipment, using a mix of alien and human knowledge. Ethan was amazed. You never told me you were this smart, he said one day. She grinned. You never asked. Together, they created better systems, stronger drones, weather shields, even a communication array that could bounce signals to the nearest moons. The farm was no longer just a place to live. It was becoming a fortress of hope. One evening, a trader's ship landed nearby. A strange man stepped out, eyeing Soraya. You survived? He said with a cruel smile. Didn't expect that. Ethan stepped in front of her before she could answer. She's not for sale. Not now. Not ever, the trader scoffed. She's property. You're just borrowing her. No, Soraya said, stepping forward. I was property. Now I'm a person. She raised her wrist, showing a burnt scar, the tracker Ethan had removed months ago. The trader looked between them, sensing the change. Then he turned and walked away. As the ship vanished into the sky, Ethan looked at her. You didn't even flinch. I wasn't afraid, she said. Not with you here. He placed a hand on her shoulder. And you'll never have to be afraid again. In that moment, Soraya knew something had shifted permanently. This wasn't just a second chance anymore. It was a new beginning. That night, as they sat by the fire once more, Ethan handed her something small, a box. Inside was a tiny necklace made from salvaged metal. The charm was shaped like a seedling, a sign of growth. I'm not good at gifts, he said, a little embarrassed. Soraya stared at it, speechless. It's not about where you come from, he said. It's about what you choose to become. Tears rolled down her cheeks. And for the first time since she had arrived on Earth, she whispered the words she once thought she'd never say. Thank you for choosing me. Asterisk, the stars above the valley blinked like quiet watchers in the night sky. But Soraya wasn't looking up anymore. She was looking ahead. For the first time in her life, she wasn't wondering when she would be taken away. She was planning what? To build. Ethan had given her the land behind the barn, just a small patch of dirt, but it was hers. She worked on it every day, digging, wiring, building. When Ethan asked what she was making, she only smiled. "You'll see," she said, tapping her nose with a spark-covered finger. He didn't press that he trusted her now. Days turned into weeks. The farm healed from the storm, and so did their bond. But Saraya was focused on something else, now something bigger than herself, bigger than the farm. Every night, she studied Ethan's books and scrolled through his old data tablets. Then, she mixed her alien knowledge with his Earth tech. She stayed up late in the workshed, sparks flying, fingers moving, eyes glowing with purpose. Ethan would sometimes hear the hum of strange engines and the buzz of unfamiliar tools. He never asked questions, but he watched. And deep down, he knew she wasn't just building a machine. She was building her future. One morning, Saraya finally called him over. "Come see," she said, her voice shaking with excitement. Behind the barn stood something that shimmered under the sun. It looked like a large silver dome, smooth and reflective, with blue vines crawling up its side like decoration. A soft humming sound came from within. Ethan blinked. "What is this?" Saraya smiled wide. "It's a purifier, a living one." "A what?" "It filters the soil," she explained. "Takes dead land and heals it. It uses both Earth bacteria and lunar crystal cells from my planet. I've never built one on this world before, but I think it's working." Ethan walked up, touched the outer shell. It was warm. Saraya pointed to the dirt around it. Tiny green sprouts were growing fast. This land was dry. "Now it breathes again." He turned to her, stunned. "Saraya, this could save entire regions." She nodded. "That's why I built it, not just for us. For your people." He was quiet. Then he said softly, "This is the most human thing anyone could do." She blinked, surprised. "But I'm not human." He looked at her with pride. "You're better. You're proof that kindness creates miracles." Later that evening, as word spread through local farming signals, neighbors came to see the strange machine. Ethan explained what it was, but Saraya stayed back, nervous. These were humans who didn't know her past, didn't know what she used to be. But then one child walked up and pointed at her. "You built this?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. The boy smiled and gave her a flower. "It's pretty, like you." Everyone laughed. And just like that, the fear melted away. That night, as they sat by the fire, Ethan turned to her. "You know what this means, right? If the Galactic Council finds out you're giving advanced alien tech to humans, they'll come." Saraya stared into the flames. "I know. They'll label you a traitor." She nodded. "Let them." "You're not afraid?" "I was," she said. "But not anymore. This place. You gave me something I thought I'd never have." "What's that?" She looked at him and smiled gently. "A reason to fight." 2 days later, a deep rumble filled the sky. Ethan looked up. "That's not thunder." Saraya stepped out beside him, her eyes already knowing. A probe, galactic model, watching, recording. "They found me," she whispered. Ethan grabbed his rifle. "We'll shoot it down." "No," she said calmly. "We'll let it see everything." He frowned. "Why?" "Because I'm not hiding," she said, stepping forward into the open. "Let them see what I've become." The probe hovered silently, lights blinking. Then, as if curious, it turned slowly and flew away. Ethan stared. "They'll come back." "I hope they do," Saraya whispered. "I'll be waiting with open hands and open truth." The stars above blinked again, but this time, they weren't just watching her. They were watching what she had become. Not a slave, not a stranger, but a builder, a protector, a gift to humanity. They arrived at dawn. 12 silver ships, shaped like daggers, pierced through the morning sky above the valley. No warning, no message, just the heavy sound of engines that didn't belong on Earth. Ethan dropped his tools as the ground trembled. Saraya stepped out of the barn, her face pale but calm. They came for me, she said softly. Ethan stood beside her, shielding his eyes from the glare. What do they want? She didn't blink. To take me back. To punish me for helping humans, for building the purifier, for choosing freedom. And if you refuse, her voice was steady, they'll call it treason. One of the ships lowered, dust exploding in all directions. The ramp descended, and a figure walked out, tall, armored in gold, with glowing eyes and a voice like thunder. Soraya, daughter of House Illyri, the alien declared. You have violated intergalactic law. Surrender yourself. Soraya took one step forward. No. The alien commander tilted his head. You dare deny the High Council? I do, she said. Because I found something more powerful than your rules. I found a home. Ethan's jaw tightened. If they want you, they'll have to go through me. The alien sneered. Human farmer? Pathetic. Soraya suddenly raised a glowing device. This land is protected now. By my technology. By my word. The ships above began scanning the area, only to find a network of signals, defensive frequencies, and alien-coded shields hidden beneath the soil. Soraya had quietly made the valley into a fortress. She looked at the commander. You taught me how to obey. But this man taught me how to care. That's stronger, the commander growled. Then you'll die with him. He raised a weapon. Before Ethan could even reach for his rifle, Soraya moved faster. She stood in front of him, arms outstretched, protecting him with her body. No, she shouted. I gave everything for this life. I won't let you take it. Away. A flash of blue light burst from her wrist. The air shimmered. A defense shield activated, spreading around them in a dome of energy. The shot bounced harmlessly off the shield. Gasps echoed from the other ships. The commander lowered his weapon slowly. You built that yourself? Soraya nodded. With human help. Silence. Then came the words that shook the sky. Then the council was wrong about you. By noon, the ships were gone. They didn't arrest her. They didn't destroy the valley. They left, carrying with them a message that one alien girl, raised under chains, had chosen humanity over power, and lived to tell about it. That evening, the sun dipped below the hills, casting golden light across the field. The purifier hummed gently. New plants swayed in the breeze. Ethan and Soraya stood together, watching the windmills turn. I thought I was going to lose you today, Ethan said. She looked up at him. You almost did, but you stayed. She nodded. Because you stayed for me when no one else would, he chuckled. You really scared them up there, she grinned. Good, they needed a lesson. You think they'll come back? Maybe, she said, but next time they'll think twice. He turned to her. So, what now? She smiled softly. Now we build. Not just machines, but peace. In the days that followed, visitors came from far-off places, farmers, engineers, even ambassadors. They came not just to see the purifier, but to meet the alien girl who stood up to the council and chose Earth. Soraya never asked for fame, but her name spread like light, and the story of her loyalty, of the day she stood between Earth and Quotin. The stars became legend. That night, as they sat by the fire once again, Ethan handed her a new journal. What's this? She asked. Your story, he said. You should be the one to write it now. She opened the first page. At the top, she wrote, I was once a number. Now I am a name. A builder. A protector. A friend. This is the story of how I stopped running and stood for something instead. She looked at him, eyes shining. And it all started, she whispered, the day you lost patience and gave me a reason to change. End of part 7.